Good afternoon. Excuse me. We'll bring this Department of Public Works meeting to order. Everybody is here. Glad to see you all today. And this meeting was posted as required by state law. Now we'll stand for a moment of silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll look at the minutes from the last meeting. If you had a chance to look at them, does anybody have any questions or changes or anything that need to be made? Okay, seeing none, we'll accept them as they are. And we'll move on to discussion items. Now we're going to go in a different order than what's on the sheet here. So we will start with the transit ridership report.
Alrighty. Hello, my name is Charles Goft. I'm the transit manager for Washington County. Attached you have the ridership report. Do you have any questions on the report?
Oh, and of course they're not in order of the...
Oh, right. Yeah, it's all the way at the bottom.
It's all the way to the bottom. I should have zoomed down there first. I know I looked at them this weekend myself, so. Seems to be holding their own. Down a little bit yet. Anybody else have any questions on the ridership report? Other than we'll just keep on monitoring and see what happens and make adjustments if necessary. Okay. Seeing no questions, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Now we'll move on to Highway Quarterly Report.
Hello, I'm Josh Glass. I'm the
Hey,
Assistant
Josh.
Highway Commissioner. Nice to be before you today. Anybody have any questions on the Highway Quarterly Report?
I believe this is the first time seeing these, and so we'll just do a quick synopsis.
If we could, please, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll see three in your packet. The first one is the 2050 Transportation Network Sustainability Plans for all participating municipalities. And so we've got several municipalities that are done, but we're currently working on the city of Hartford and town of Farmington. So we'll help get those done within the next month or so they can use that for the next budgeting process. Then we'll be on to the next municipalities. I believe town of Addison and maybe it was Jackson that asked us to be next on the list. So we got a couple more coming there. Very similar to our Transportation Network Sustainability Plan. We look at their roadways and their past history, their future, and give them a roadmap to the future of what that looks like. Funding opportunities, stuff like that. So we'll bring those before you as well. You'll see the towns and cities before you. Those are, again, documents very similar to the length that you see here today. We don't expect you to review every single page of those documents because they are being looked over by the towns and the cities in great depth. But just to let you know that we are performing those going forward.
Oh, real quick question, being that I had the Town of Addison meeting tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Town of Addison, and do you know about when you'd be starting with them?
Once we get these two finished, and probably fall this year,
Fall?
Again, finish, usually takes several months to do. So again, have it ready for their next budget cycle.
Yeah. No, I'm okay with being real
Yep.
vague with them.
Yep.
Sometime
Oh, yeah.
in fall.
Yeah.
Is that,
We'll
if I
be-
pinpoint it, we'll be wrong. And
We'll
then
be in
we're-
touch with them this fall, yes. Correct.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, intersection safety
The next
analysis.
one's what you're going to see tonight, that we're doing the counties ones first. It's again, I won't go into what Josh could explain to you later on, but we're looking at doing the counties first, but then also extending this to municipalities who want that done for them as well. So again, this is kind of our second go at it, and then after this now, we'll be then providing that same analysis to any municipality that wants it. Again, they'll be have to request it for us. We're not just going to do that if they don't want it, but it'll be a little more abbreviated version than what you see here countywide, but it'll be very similar in nature.
Very good. Any questions on this one?
Well, we did the intersection one 5 years ago, and now we're redoing it again. And then checking to see how the improvements we made 5 years ago, how it did. Did they make any improvements? Hopefully they did. And Josh will go through those with you. But then now updating ours for the next group of intersections. But we have not done them for the town, city, or village yet. But we want to extend that to them as well because there's still intersections in our county and safety is important to us.
So there's no history of who takes you up on this, right?
No, correct. 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 Yes. Yes, we've provided overall maps for every municipality using the data Josh will show you. We give them the maps and go, okay, here's where your heavy crashes are, here your light crashes are, and that's all we've done in the past. Okay. And if they had questions, they could contact us intersection by intersection, but this will be more of a in-depth analysis. Yeah. We have heat maps in our map, right? Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Right. And then the last one is the high-risk rural road program. So again, we've looked at the intersections, and again, that's about within 250 feet of the intersection. But now the high-risk rural roads is anywhere outside those intersections, where are those crashes happening, and what can we do to mitigate those? So we're not just looking at the intersections, but technically it's the area outside of the intersection. So I figured we looked at our intersections, and we made some great improvements, which Josh will talk about, but also let's look in those other areas to see what improvements we can make out in the more rural areas where if you have a crash on a 55-mile-an-hour highway, it might be a little more dangerous and, severity than you do it on Highway Q, for instance, where it's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. So. But we figured that, and then again, once we complete ours, we got to get that one done first. We'll extend that also to the municipalities to do.
Any other questions? Well, seeing none, then we'll move on to intersection safety plan, the big one of the day.
All right. Again, thanks for having me. Scott already alluded to some of the foundation that we have going behind this plan. So I believe everybody's got a hard copy in front of you. So I just want to walk through a little bit of the history on this, kind of make sure that everybody's got a pretty good understanding of where it came from and why, how the plan came together. And then also I'm going to get into some of the action we've taken. This is the second edition of this plan that we're developing. So I want to look at some of the things we've done because of the first edition. And hopefully you guys can see improvements made that way, and then we're going to look at some of the intersections that are now on our radar that we're going to be trying to tackle over the next couple of years. So we'll get into that. I'm also going to talk about the 3 different categories of how we break down the information, the crash data, and go from there. So a little bit of the introduction and history. Like right after the cover page, you can see an explanation. It came through the strategic priority process back in 2017 and 2019 from the county board. We were given that directive. That's where it really originated. I don't know if you can bring it up on the screen. Okay. So we were directed by the County Board of Supervisors. That's also explained on page 2 in section 1.2 if you want to learn a little bit more of that history. The first big step of putting this together was to build the inventory of county-controlled intersections. So we work very closely with our GIS department, specifically Mike Vandersanden, who does an outstanding job with us, very close partnership on a lot of the work that we do and the mapping that goes along with it. First thing we did was gather that information, and Mike can run these magical analyses that put together all these pretty pictures, pretty maps. You can see it all. Then it was a matter of determining jurisdictional authority. So we need to determine which intersections are actually county controlled, and we have the authority to actually make changes on. So they get into that on page 4 in section 2. You kind of see, so what I mean by a county controlled intersection, if we have a state highway and a county highway that intersect, it always goes to the higher level of government for its control. So if we have a county and a town road, that'd be a county controlled intersection. Town would be a town. So it's pretty simple. We got some visuals on there on page 5. So then it's a matter of filtering out all of the intersections in the county, and then we figure out which ones are county controlled. Mike can do that behind the scenes, put together the maps like on map 1. You can see a lot of roads where a lot of mileage was gained and lost through jurisdictional transfers since our first plan. So that's one thing that I wanted to highlight as far as different levels of control changing through the jurisdictional transfers. So we can get on, now I can bring it up on the screen for you too. You can see on this map here, if you want me to zoom in on anything, I can. But the different colors represent mileage that was gained or lost, and every dot on the map is an intersection. Then we did the final inventory of county-controlled intersections. So if you go to map 2 on page 8, that's really showing everything that was on our radar within our control to make change. So every green dot on there is a county-controlled intersection. You'll see some red dots on there too. So those are county highways that are border highways. So like ones that are along Highway Q, for example, on the southern border. You know, those come up in our inventory because they are a county highway, but those segments of Q are not under our county's jurisdiction. Those are Waukesha County, so they have the control. Does lead to potential conversations with them if improvements should be made, even though it's not our intersection per se. Next thing was just to run the analysis. We break it down 3 different ways. So we look at the overall number of crashes that happen at an intersection. We also break it down by the crash rate, so adjusting that per average daily amount of vehicles going through the intersection. And then we also look at crash severity. So even if it has a very low number of crashes, but they are severe, if there's fatalities and major injuries, that's also an important way of evaluating the information. So that's how we break it down. The first plan, the first edition that we did looked at data from 2013 to 2017, that 5-year window. The second edition that we're looking at now is the next 5-year window, so 18 to 2022. And then we also, you know, that's just so we can look at trends in those 5-year blocks just to keep that consistent. We also took into consideration things that happened since 2022. So we got another year and a half after that also factored in to our decision making. The information that we utilized in the data source comes from the Wisconsin Transportation Portal that's maintained by UW-Madison and the Traffic Operations and Safety Lab. So every time there's a crash out there that law enforcement responds to and they fill out their crash report, that's all logged and tracked into this portal. So there's public information out there, and I can bring that up to you so you can get a visual. You can just Google community maps. It's the first link that pops up for me. And this is all public. And just go enter community maps. And this is where all that information goes. Then you can go over on the left panel here. You can sort out different time frames. You can select different forms of crashes. We exclude deer crashes for this. That's just kind of a natural thing that we don't factor in. It's not really a human control type thing. So we take those, we exclude those in our analysis. I have some advanced approvals for getting information off the website. So I go to this advanced tab. This is not public facing per se, but I got some settings preset. I can look at the timeline, and I'm just going to show you one of the crash records here, because you can't actually see the reports on the public side. But if you zoom into one of the dots,
Up to now, this is what everyone in the public could see. You can see exactly where the crashes happened based on the years that you selected. So everybody has access to this, but each individual crash is one little dot. The maps we usually provide to the municipalities have what's called a heat map. The more crashes an intersection, the more larger the circle is. Least crashes, smaller the circle is. But this shows every individual crash in the county for the time period that Josh selected.
Can you touch base on why you have some in blue, some in yellow, some in green?
Just about to do that. So if you see red dots, those indicate that there was a fatality, either at least one fatality involved with the intersection crash. So if there even was more than one, it'd still be a red dot. Or if there was a fatality resulting, sometimes it's not an immediate thing. And then it's also color coded. You can see up here on the top left part, depending on the level of injuries involved, or if there's no injuries and just property damage, that would be a green. So red is bad, that's fatality. Then you got orange, yellow, blue, those are different levels of injury. And then green is property damage only. So if they hit a sign or guardrail or something like that.
Think of it this way. If it's an A injury, that means they probably got transported to the hospital. If it's a B injury, they may have got transported, maybe not. The officers physically saw something wrong with them. Maybe they had blood on their face or something like that. So that's the thing would be that, but maybe they got transported and be treated on site and released. The C injury is the person goes, oh, my neck's sore, and that's it. So that's the kind of thing. So again, blue is property damage only. You have a little fender bender. Nobody complains about an injury. The yellow again is someone just complaining about a sore neck, or excuse me, a B would be something that they could see physically, but maybe didn't get transported to the hospital. A, generally speaking, is they got transported to a hospital.
And I'll show you one example of a crash report. So this link here would not be on the public-facing side, but this is something that we look at, we review. So I'm not going to go past the first page of this because there's names and there's private information on there. But this is what we look at. This is what law enforcement fills out, and then these are all geotagged. They're located so they can put that on that mapping application. So you can look at different conditions, weather conditions, time of day, and all of that. So they put together this diagram so you can visualize what happened, and then they put some kind of a narrative with it to explain that in their own words. And the level of detail and accuracy that the law enforcement puts into this is directly relative to how well our plans come out.
Does the law enforcement update this?
They do, and even if something happens, say there's an injury, and somebody would pass away, days or weeks later, they can go in and amend these as well and try to keep that information as true as possible. And the more effort and accuracy they put into it directly affects the quality of plans like this. So it's really important that they do that correctly and thoroughly. Like Scott said, the intersection plan looks at intersections. Through GIS, they run that 250-foot radius out of the center cross of the intersection. So anything within those boundaries, those dots that were kind of pegged physically to that intersection, like this one here, like this one would fall into our plan just being within 250 feet of that intersection. If there's one out here, that would fall into our roadway analysis that will be coming to you guys soon. Back to how the plan was put together, we look at the overall number of crashes, crash rate, crash severity, and then we produce a top 5 list for each one of those 3 categories, and those are the highest ones on our radar for ones that need improvement. Doesn't mean that we're not going to do things to other intersections as we see issues, but those are the ones that are profiled in this plan as potentially needing the most attention, the most urgent attention. Just kind of flipping through the plan, you can see that list on table 3, page 12. Let's see if I can bring that back up. Here you can see the list of our top 5 of the highest, or intersections with the highest number of total crashes. And then you can see the profile, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's in the back of the plan. I'll get to that a little bit later. Just kind of continuing on through that, you can see the crash rate formula. You can see maps so you can visualize where these intersections are that are highest on our radar. I'm not going to go into all the detail of the formulas and all that, but severity, there is a more complex formula there. So if there's fatalities or depending on the level of injury, it's given more weight within the formula that's going to produce a higher severity index and bring that up to the top of the list. You can see those on the maps as well. So now I'm going to jump a little bit. I'm going to jump towards the back of the plan, and we're going to look at what we did since our first addition to this plan and kind of show you some of the results that came from it. It's a long document. So I'm going to jump, it's page 104, back in Appendix F. This section highlights things we did. Yeah, I'll make it bigger. So just a quick summary, just a very quick synopsis of what came up in our last plan and what we did. First example I'd like to show you is Highway Q and Hillside. down on the county line, Village of Richfield area. There were some major crash issues here, some severe injury involved with that. We wound up pursuing HISAP funds. That's the Highway Safety Improvement Plan. That's a 90-10 split, 90 by the state fed level and 10 locally. And that produced a new roundabout. And that was in 2023, and there hasn't really been a single crash since 2023. So knock on wood. That's on the higher end of improvements when you're going to full-blown reconstruction and altering an intersection and converting it to a roundabout like this. There's a lot of other things that I'd like to highlight here and a few other intersections, not quite as complex as that one. Highway K, it used to be Highway K, jurisdictionally transferred since, but now part of Turtle Road, north of Hartford. This used to be our highway. There was some crash issues there as well. That was converted, realigned, converted to a T intersection. One property damage only crash since this has been realigned and reconfigured, and then since been transferred to the town level. Highway C, we did a reconstruction project in 2017. So there's roundabouts involved there, just north of Highway 60, Town of Polk, Village of Slinger area. I really want to highlight this intersection change at Stony Lane. You can see here, you can kind of see how things were. I'm just using aerial photos from GIS and Google Earth. Photo on the left is before we treated this intersection. Photo on the right shows you how things were completely realigned, trying to maximize the most amount of the highest level of safety for positioning with the turning movements, stop bars, freshly paved surface through the reconstruction program. And there's been no crashes there since 2017. Yes, knock on wood. Crash severity has been reduced to 0. So that, I mean, you can see there's a very good example physically of before and after and how that can make a difference. Looking at Highway D, I'm just going to cruise through a few of these here. There's some crashes up at D and Rustic. Turn lane went in there. Crashes there's been a crash, but it's drastically improved. H and Sandy Ridge Road. Some of these treatments might just be upgrading advanced warning signage or an oversized stop sign or putting more reflectivity out there so people see the signage better, clearing vegetation. So at Sandy Ridge and H there, we upgraded the warning signage there for intersection ahead. Seems to improve safety just from that. K and Shamrock, there was a severe crash there, but that was an human error there. That it's wide open, so sometimes there's really no action that we deem needed. There has been no crashes since then. M and Highland, this was part of our reconstruction project in 2023. As M was reconstructed, there were issues here with traffic approaching on Highland, just the angle that the vehicle sat at, and when they're looking north and south on M, the sight lines were not good. There's hills and valleys there, and through that reconstruction project, the Highway M was leveled off, valleys filled, hills cut down, sight lines were opened up drastically, and we also elevated that intersection where when cars are stopped there, that was elevated to a degree where they have a better position for vision.
Instead of driving up a ramp, they're starting at a more level position.
Right. Any other ones you want to highlight here, Scott? Otherwise, I'm going to keep on using through.
There's more in there, but again, for the instance of time, certainly take a look through those. But I just want to thank Josh for his level of effort on that, as well as our sign guys, our highway crews, and Brad Abraham, our project engineer, for really taking the lead on all these projects and looking at them one by one individually and making improvements that obviously make a difference.
So that's just a quick snapshot of some of the things that we did resulting from the first edition of the plan. So it's definitely proved to be a very valuable tool for us to have to reference and identify the highest priorities. Now, looking at this edition of the plan, I'm going to jump into the profiles that we put together for the current issues that remain out there. Maximize this. So, like I said, out of those, for number of crashes, crash rate, and crash severity, we developed a top 5 list for each one of those, and then we profiled those intersections, as you can see now on the screen, kind of looking back at the data that we had from 2013 to 17, and then what's changed since going into 18 to 2022. So the highest number of crashes, as you may expect, are down on Highway Q, down in the more urbanized area. That's the highest area of traffic volume on all of our county system. This is on page 26, if you're following on the hard copy. So not severe crashes. Hopefully it stays that way. But a lot of fender benders, a lot of inattentive driving, following too closely, just people rear-end accidents. It's a lot of them. But we've looked at different improvements. So we looked at Highway Q and Rivercrest. That was number 1 by far on the first plan, and it is again now. You can get into some of the remedies that we've looked at and some of the pictures. You can see on the aerial photos there's a 2017 and a 2022. You can see differences between the two photos. Let's see if I can get it better. You see some of the painting that we did. So 2017 on the south leg, particularly on this intersection, we tried to realign traffic, especially making that eastbound turn from the south by painting different delineations, doing different paint markings and clear paint markings, reviewing the signage. We also shifted the position of that stop sign. There's a lot of rear end. There's hesitation as cars were turning off that movement here. So we're trying to position them a little bit better to reduce some of those accidents. So it's things like that we're finding. You can see some pictures of the stop sign. We put reflectivity on that stop sign. We moved it back probably 20 feet closer to the intersection or so. Crash numbers haven't really gone down a lot there, but average daily traffic continues to climb. There's always going to be accidents there. We're just trying to keep our finger on the pulse, per se, and try to stay ahead of any more severe issues.
While we're talking about Q, can you also let these people know, especially the new ones here, the conundrum you have when it comes to lining up the stop and go lights because of the different municipalities that control them, and if that affects the crash as well?
It definitely is a factor. That whole corridor, Scott, you can speak on it much better than I can. He was in the middle of that discussion. That was a lot of coordination with the local municipalities and the DOT to get that whole corridor in sync to maximize traffic flow.
Yeah, just real quickly, the signals are coordinated between the state of Wisconsin owns the signals by the on and off ramp. Then going down the roadway, they're either owned by the village of Germantown or the village of Menominee Falls. The county doesn't own any of those. And so the DOT, with the help of those municipalities, took on a 7-year project to actually coordinate all those traffic signals together, and the DOT helps monitor those traffic signals. Some of them were going back to, like, you go to the system, right, and they're like, one would not communicate with the other. Now they're all communicating, and they get adjusted by the DOT. So you can imagine that you're going to one signal going, I can't drive from one end to the other without stopping 13 times. That's what was happening. They weren't communicating at all. So what we want to do is make sure with this corridor that now you stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. That's better traffic flow. So times in the morning, times a day, that they actually go to a flashing signals. If you've been early in the city of West Bend, that's before 6 a.m. and I think it's 11 p.m. at night. They do a lot of flashing signals. It's the same thing down here now we're doing. And so it just took a lot of coordination to go through and do that modifications down there. But we're really happy that they are all able to work together. We provided a little input here and there when we could. But we're really appreciative of the DOT taking the lead on that. It was a long and lengthy project, and to connect those signals with different technologies in each of them was quite an undertaking. But I do want to point out that movement that Josh was mentioning. Since we did that realignment, there's been a 62% decrease in those crashes. So in the second page of that report that Josh has up, you'll see when those crashes actually occurred, too. There's not just when they are, but every number has a date associated with it. So you can see that actually was reduced by 62% after we did that, because a lot of those crashes were before we actually made those improvements. So that location is better. But then, of course, you look at now we got a problem in North Lake for some reason. So it does move around a little bit on those. But again, as Josh pointed out, when you look at the list of crashes on the second page of that, you'll see a lot of PDO, property damage only. Again, not a lot of A crashes, no fatalities. So again, it's a lot of people on their cell phones nowadays not paying attention, and it happens. And so we're certainly going to look for keep improvements, but sometimes you just kind of have to move on to the next intersection like Josh will do now.
Yep.
Thank you.
As part of the intersection profiles, we send the information to SewerPAC, Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and they put together these nice diagrams, which are, I think, very helpful. So they capture all that data, and then they put it into this to visualize the issues, so you can see different symbology indicates rear end crashes or angle crashes, and then there's a number to every one of these arrows. They represent a crash, and then the number correlates to the table after it. So you can see in the tables that follow, you can see trends. If there, a lot of following too close and inattentive driving is a very, very common themes, as you might imagine, as you travel around in society these days, as Scott was saying. A lot of distractions, a lot of impatience. So you'll see that throughout numerous intersections that are profiled in the plan. So I'm going to jump over. I'm going to go to the next one, Highway Q again, for high crash number and Falls Parkway and Emmer Road intersection. So a little further to the east in that Village of Germantown area of Highway Q. So I'm going to jump to that profile on page 35. You can see the numbers there. Number of crashes, again, hasn't changed a lot, but the ADT, again, continues to climb, and it actually brought the crash rate down. Some of the things that we did there in that corridor, you can look at the aerial photos. We did a lot of upgrades to the painting and the delineations in that area. So not everything is necessarily tabbed to, just one turning movement. It's sometimes the traffic flow in and around within that 250-foot radius of the intersections. We also did some sign adjustments through coordination with the DOT, adding, clarification. We got a right turn must turn right, right lane must turn right sign. As you're heading eastbound, approaching that intersection, there's confusion. There's a lot of movement, a lot of congestion in that area. So we're hoping that continues to help the trend.
If I could have you just turn to page 35 real quick. I don't want to gloss over there's a nice chart that Josh put together basically showing the 2013 to 2017 data. You'll see up above. It's this spreadsheet basically right in the middle of the thing. And that shows the current traffic control, the daily traffic that was in 2013 to 2017, projected traffic, speed limit, but more importantly, down below there, it has reported crashes in 13 to 17. So you can see the total crashes in 13 to 17 was 53, which ranked second in total crashes. The crash rate was 20th, and then severity was 29th out of all the intersections in the county. You look down, the next one is 2018 through 22. You can see the traffic went from 30,600 to 31,700, so it went up a little bit. The number of crashes went from 53 to 50, so again, a slight decrease. But more importantly, the crash rate, how many crashes per million vehicles entering that, was 20th, now 25th. So again, the crash rate went down, and the severity went from 29th to 39th. So again, the number of severe crashes went down as well. So again, we're looking at those trends, and again, we'll look at this in another couple of years. But that's really the two that are very important to us, those two spreadsheets that you see right there going, okay, this is where it was before, this is where it is now. Oh, it's not increasing, it's decreasing, so maybe some more modifications, we can keep pushing that number down a little bit more.
Moving on to the next one, and the third profile starts on page 42, looking at Highway Q and Pilgrim. Another high volume intersection down there in the Village of Germantown area. This is real close to the relatively new FedEx facility. So traffic changed drastically as that was introduced to the community. So obviously with that additional traffic, which is significant, crashes again went up in that area, as you can imagine. So we looked at, tried to identify some trends there. You can look at the diagram, page 45. Kind of capturing the issues there, some angle crashes, rear ends. So we have some ideas. We haven't been able to do a lot at this one yet, but there is potential there where we could enhance, maybe do some overhead traffic signals, checking the warning signs, approaching the intersections, things of that nature. So there hasn't been a lot done there, but some of those improvements that we're identifying is going to take coordination with other local governments.
Just a quick question on that. You identify an intersection. What's the process to identify what could be changed to make a difference, to make it better? Just my own, it makes sense.
Go ahead.
I think to start with, it's that Josh and I have, been around the highway department for a little while, so it's our experience. Two, it's taking classes on it and learning from there, being part of the Traffic Safety Commission, going to different seminars on traffic control and how it's done, reading about it. But more importantly is in the past, we've ran these by the state DOT safety engineers as well as sewer pack. So we've got local buy-in as well and saying, okay, what would you do for this if it was your intersection, DOT or sewer packs help? So that we kind of take all that stuff, experience, and look at it and go, okay, these intersections that we're talking about on Highway Q will work with the neighboring municipalities. This one, for instance, if you see up here on Pilgrim, you'll see a lot of those angle crashes, right? You see that the people that are coming to the west are trying to turn south, they get hit by the person coming the other way. One thing we could do is a protected arrow. What that is, like the green arrow, right? Saying those people can only make that turning movement if there's a green arrow. Right now, they can just go through without a green arrow. Right? It turns green, and it can go both ways. And so we look at that, going, well, how bad is that? And we look at them all and going, yeah, there's 5 of them, but they're all property damage only. Nobody's really hurt bad. And so if we look at that, going, well, do we want everybody to sit there and wait now and cause them to be delayed, and maybe they'll take a chance then trying to get through that green light because they know that arrow's coming and they'll shut them down. So it's kind of a balancing act there that we do, and internally we work with those local villages going, well, 5 crashes in 5 years, 1 year, they're all property damage only. All right, let's just keep moving on. Or if there's more severe ones, we go, no, it's time to do it.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next one, profile number 4, starting at page 48. This is Highway Q and Highway Y, also known as Landon Road. So again, we're still in that same general area, just further west now on the other side of the freeway. If you look at the diagram on page 51, biggest issue on this one was that north leg as southbound traffic is approaching. A lot of rear end crashes here. Especially with the traffic turning eastbound. So we looked at that. You can see some pictures in the plan as well. We're trying to align traffic as they're coming southbound, turning west, trying to put them in a better position for sight and just safer alignment here. So we did adjust that stop sign. There's some other potential there too that, again, could involve traffic signals. So we're giving this one a little bit more time to see if this is going to help.
We'd stay right there. Previously, there was a lot of, you see on the upper part of the screen, the 2 arrows that are kind of an angle. Before, we had a lot of those crashes. There were people making a turn and just not doing it. So we made some improvements there, so those went way down. But now the people that are going through the intersection, for whatever reason, the last 5 years, now those people keep bumping into each other. And so if you go up to the picture right above that, Josh, and we'll point to the upper picture, you'll see you're kind of coming around a corner there a little bit and, going, yeah, if traffic's backed up because we've got more cars there, we're going to do some more advanced warning signs to make sure they know that intersection is up there ahead of time. The other option is to put the trombone arms up above the intersection with the traffic signals to make them up and higher, or put another post right in the middle of that median. So that's just some of the options that we're looking at there going, all right, I think we can, you look at that crash diagram and, yeah, the big is all those people heading southbound and bumping into each other. And so how can we solve that? So we got some ideas there.
Next one I'd like to highlight is number 5 on page 54, County Highway M, also known as Wasaki Road, and formerly County Highway F. It's now Freistad Road. This was a 2-way stop. It had a significant crash history with that one. A lot of improvements made. Again, is kind of timing it with our 2023 Highway M reconstruction project. This intersection was resurfaced and the traffic control was enhanced greatly. Converted from a 2-way stop to a 4-way stop, and I can show you some visuals there of the signage that exists today. So using those HISAB funds, again, the 90-10 split program has been extremely effective. You can see the overhead stop signs there. We got dual stop signs, reflection everywhere, advanced warning signage, flags. And I'll tell you what, this has worked greatly. This has been super successful. A lot of crashes in the past, and ever since that's gone in there, we used to get a lot of calls. Now we don't get any calls out down there, and hopefully it stays that way. But a great success. And you can see that last line on page 54. There was one crash since that conversion. It was just a failure to yield in 2022, and no crashes since as of May of this year. So that was a huge success. Highway F then was transferred to the Village of Germantown, but we still maintained control due to Highway M being a part of that.
Is that why traffic count went down? Because we transferred the road and there's maybe they found a better way to get around?
Sometimes traffic counts can get affected by projects in the area, and detours are going to
gotcha.
influence traffic counts on certain roads and not so much others. So that can play a factor sometimes.
So that would skew this a little bit if there's a detour for whatever reason or something.
It's possible. The DOT does traffic counts every so many years. And so if there was a detour in 13 to 17 when they did it in that window, it could have been a higher number back then. So we'd have to go back and look at when they did it and what projects were going on. But you just never know. Like,
I mean,
for
when I
instance,
look at all the other ones, they're all going up, right? Because
Correct.
we would assume with
Yes.
the population increase and stuff, but that one went way down. So
Scott, I have a question. What is the feet on a stop ahead sign before the stop sign? How many feet is that?
750 feet, typically speaking. 750 feet and 55-mile-an-hour zone. And so there's a range. If you want help and exact numbers, it depends on your speed. We'd be happy to provide any of those informations to you offline. But generally speaking, the stop ahead sign is about 750 feet on a 55-mile-an-hour roadway. And so one of the things we did last time, we looked at that going, yeah, there's some that weren't quite in the right location. I'm going to pick on your municipality, had one that was incorrect, and we actually had to adjust it to make it at the right distance, because having that uniformity lets people know when to, if they're all at different lengths, you can imagine one's at 200 feet or one's at 1,000 feet. The people that are driving it, if you see a sign at 1,000 feet, you're going, where the heck is this intersection? If you put one at 200 feet ahead of time, they're going to go, holy cow, it's right there. So it's very important that those are uniform, and that's why they have the manual for uniform traffic control devices, and it says right in there where they should be. And our sign guys are fantastic at doing those measurements.
if you have a blind intersection, though, say you're coming up over a hill, do you add more
additional.
stop aheads?
You can add additional, correct. You
Okay.
can always add additional, you just can't do less, or
Less.
shouldn't do less.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, we're going to shift gears a little bit onto profile number 6, page 60. So now we're transitioning into intersections with high crash rate. So we're kind of moving out of that urbanized Germantown area down there to some of the lesser volume roads, but still maintaining a higher rate of crash. First one is Highway G, that's Division Road and Pleasant Valley Road. So in the Jackson area again there, for some reason that has produced consistently high crash rate. We've done work out there. We've enhanced the signage. We've cut vegetation. We opened up vision. But for some reason, that east-west traffic, and you can see some in the diagram there on page 63, it's really that northwest quadrant. We're getting angle crashes there. So there's a few more enhancements. We could go to dual stop signs out there. We might try that. Advanced warning signage is there and is up to standards. But again, we're giving this time to see if this is going to help. You don't see results right away overnight. But there's a few things we could do out in this area as well. If you got any questions, please speak up. I'm going to just keep on going through the list. The next one I want to go over is Highway M in Pleasant Valley, again, town of Jackson. For this one, we didn't really see an issue with. There's down by the Jailhouse restaurant, and there's some traffic that was coming out of there. And this profile starts on page 65. There's 3 crashes in that area, property damage only, not believed to be due to the actual configuration of the intersection. It was just traffic coming in and out of the parking lot of the restaurant. So that's something there that we reviewed it. we don't see any action needed, and hopefully there's no major issues moving forward. Next one is Highway E and CC. That's page 69. Is profile number 8. This one's starting to gain a little bit more attention. If you look at the diagram there, it's primarily eastbound traffic. There's some rear ends as they're approaching that intersection, so there's a potential there that we could maybe do a turn lane or widen it out that way, enhance the warning signage again. So we'll see what we can do at this one. Any comments on that one?
No, when you look at the diagram on page 73, you'll see, 2 crashes in one location, 2 crashes in another location, 2 crashes in another location. Not a really distinct pattern on that. And if you're familiar with that intersection, I know some of you probably are, it's great sight distance looking east-west, north-south. There shouldn't be a problem there. You can see for almost probably 1.5 miles to the east and half mile to the west. So we look at then the auxiliary factors. Was alcohol a factor? Was the weather a factor? Stuff like that. And that's one thing that's nice on the next sheet too, saying, yeah, there was 3 of them. 3 that was said wet, 1 rain, 1 ice. Going, well, weather might be the biggest factor out there than anything. Going, that's a pretty big factor. We actually look at stuff like, is it sun? Are they looking into the sun in the morning? Are they looking at the sun at night? All that stuff we look at going, is that part of the issue? So this one is it's a little bit of an anomaly for us, and we're going to take a crack at putting some intersection head signs up so people can see that, and some flagging and stuff, some relatively inexpensive modifications there, but it's all sorts of months, all sorts of time of the days. It really doesn't lend itself to say this is what you should do. So we'll keep pushing away on this one.
Next one is profile 9, page 75, Highway U and Arthur Road. So now we're in the town of Hartford. Very rural area, lower traffic volume there. The issue that we see is that traffic just seems to be ignoring the stop signs on Arthur Road and kind of blowing through the intersection with Highway Q. So we could add signage. We also look at the time of year and the vision. So out here in the more rural country area, you got farm fields on every quadrant of the intersection. Sometimes you have standing corn, you have other things that are not necessarily there on other times of the year, but they're blocking vision and they're potentially gambling and going through the stop signs, assuming there's no cars coming, and apparently there are sometimes. So we can enhance the advanced warning signage there to see if that is effective and really just give them no excuse to say that they didn't know they were supposed to stop. So there's some things we can try there as well. Relatively low cost improvements.
Yeah, if you look at page 79, that gives a little description. So failure to yield is basically stop at the stop sign and pulled in front of somebody is a failure to yield. Disregarding traffic control, that means they didn't stop. And so having 5 of the 7 where people just didn't even stop, that's alarming. If it keeps trending that way, certainly we're down to, do we put rumble strips in? Are these just people that are I'm just going through? Highway U has a little lower traffic volume for one of our typical county highways. You can see the traffic volume's not as high there. So like Josh said, maybe it must be just taking chances too. And so again, depending on the time of the year, with the farm fields that are out there, July and August, not a great time to disregard that traffic control. Maybe in January you can get away with it because there's nothing out there you can maybe see, but when that crop is on that field, it's challenging. One option out there is we buy vision triangles and we buy that farmland and cut the grass. And we hope we're not there yet, so maybe some officers out there at certain times, as well as the traffic control we're doing, can eliminate that. But if it trends this way, that might be an option too, just to make sure that the people coming down Highway U have a chance to slow down or stop before they hit that car. So again, we're not proposing that right now, but if the trend continues like this, we got to be able to make sure that the traffic on Highway U is safe as well, and they can see that our car that's not going to stop and they have time to make a maneuver.
Yeah, I know you talked about standing corn, but isn't there a ditch line and the corn's still back 10 feet from the intersection where?
Well, but if someone's going 55 miles on one road and 55 miles the other way,
And he doesn't stop.
and it doesn't stop, that's the problem, right?
But
If
there
they're
is
stopped
a
at the
stop sign.
If they're stopped at the stop sign, that's what I said, this is disregarded, they're not stopping.
Right.
The failure here is they stopped and looked, then it's fine. It's when they don't stop at all. And you can imagine, if you can't see that car until it's 50 feet in front of you, it's too late.
Well, one has to wonder if there's already a stop sign, if putting a bigger one there, they're going to stop.
When you said that the rumbles, the running over those strips,
Right.
I mean, you have to run over them and.
Correct.
And going to notify you,
Right.
whether you see the stop sign or you choose not to. You're going to drive over those things.
Correct. We generally speaking don't like to introduce those because of the noise quality and quality of life for people that live there and around there. What we're looking for is just compliance, and officers, one of the best ways to get compliance for that traffic control. And like I said, we're going to try the other stop signs, dual stop signs, stuff like that, stop ahead signs.
When you
So,
look, that's field, there's no homes really near there, so,
correct.
you know,
It's
I understand the point of it, but there's nobody there,
correct.
so.
Yep. There's a farm just north and east of there, but that's the closest one. Yes.
So now we're going to shift gears again, kind of going from the crash rate to the crash severity list. First one that came up is Highway Z in Pleasant Valley. Unfortunately, there was a fatality involved with this one, page 80. We reviewed this one, and that because of that crash and the fatality there, that one shot this one to the top of the list for severity. After looking at it and reviewing the accident or crash information, it was an impaired driver that was speeding from east to west on Pleasant Valley, blew through the intersection and hit a car. Unfortunately for the car on Highway Z, got the wrong end of it. Vision is to standards out there. We reviewed the signage. Advanced warning signage is in place. We went ahead and just made an upgrade to the stop signs there, which you can see on page 82. We went to a dual stop sign there just to try to do something, hopefully prevent this again and anything like this for the future. So we got dual signage there as well as the red reflective strips on the posts. That potentially can help just with the impairment factor to have that extra reflectivity out there, and hopefully you never have to deal with that again at the intersection. Next one, profile 11, page 85, K and Wildlife Road. This is on the border of town of Addison, town of Hartford. Not a lot of crashes. There's just one crash, but it was a severe one involving a motorcycle. So usually when there's a motorcycle involved, it's going to trigger some high severity, as you can imagine. So there really wasn't a lot to do at this one. But Highway K was greatly enhanced through a reconstruction project as well a few years ago, 2019. That highway was widened, turn lanes were added, middle turn lanes were added as well. Vision was enhanced, so that thing received a major overhaul. So hopefully that's not an issue again at this intersection moving forward. Just coincidentally involved that motorcycle.
Turn lanes, did they really enhance the traffic flow?
Oh yeah, especially when there's pretty high semi-traffic down there too with some of the trucking companies. Yep. Get them out of there, get them clear and open up the lane. Yep, absolutely. Having some deceleration, acceleration area as well helps that a lot. Next one is Highway D and Glacier Drive, profile 12 on page 89. Again, this is involving a motorcycle, so resulted in a higher severity. There was just that one crash during that 5-year period. We don't see any immediate need to do some enhancements, but we do have a paving project coming to that area here in the near future, so we'll be discussing to see if we got to do any widening around this intersection. But it was just kind of that one anomaly crash there that involved the motorcycle again. Next one is profile 13, page 93, Q and Debbie Lane. Just one crash, but again, there was some more severe injuries, triggering high severity. That involved actually 3 vehicles. So it was a rear end and pushing into another car type deal. So there were injuries there. Fortunately, just one crash. So we don't see a major need. There could be some turn lanes added to that area if needed, if something happens again in the future. But traffic is generally moving slowly because of the roundabout just to the west of there. So hopefully not an issue moving forward.
And that one as well, there was a proposed development coming in too at the north end of that project. So if they do that, we'd have them put in the turn lane and bypass lane right there, and that would solve that problem as well. So.
On to the next one, profile 14, page 97. It's Highway M and NN. 2 crashes in the 5-year period, both involving southbound vehicles on M, being struck by eastbound vehicles on NN. One was a motorcycle again, so that kind of escalated the severity. And then the other one resulted in 3 injuries, 1 serious. So not a high number of crashes. We reviewed that. There is sight there. There's a little bit of a dip on NN and looking towards the curve from the intersection, but you don't lose vision there. So we're going to keep an eye on this one. Considering a few different things, if you get reduced speed limits and things like that, but we're not there yet. We're going to monitor this one and see if anything continues to happen.
Real quick question. When you talk about, obviously you had the motorcycle crash, that adds to severity, right? Do you remove that accident and look at it that way too? Remove the motorcycle concept and then say, okay, if it wasn't for that one motorcycle though, this is actually a pretty safe intersection. And that could be a human error thing or something else, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a matter of where do you draw the line, what do you include and what do you not include.
Right.
I mean, do you include impairment, it's other factors. It needs to be addressed because it does exist out there.
Right.
And if it is a traction issue or something like that, and motorcycles are legal vehicles out there, and so you do need to plan ahead if there is a trend. Maybe it's something specific to motorcycles. Maybe it's a traction issue. Maybe we've got to put a new kind of surface out there or something to that effect. So that's why we leave that in there. But we do consider that, as we're looking at the big picture.
Right.
On if we do justify certain changes or not others.
But I mean, if you just look at it with the motorcycle and then see what without.
Right.
And what does that do to your severity rating? That motorcycle can be the anomaly. And yeah, they're out there, I get it, but that can really change your profile or to change the whole,
In our opinion, it's best to give you all the data and not go behind the scenes and pull stuff out, take stuff out, stuff like that, just like we leave the impaired ones in. But like Josh said, we look at that behind the scenes going, well, 4 of the 5 were impaired. All right, now what can we do to make sure that impaired driver is as safe as possible and the people driving the other way are as safe as possible? What can we do, like Josh said, maybe the reflective strip they'll see or a larger stop sign or something to help that thing? Or if there's a tavern right down the road, talk to the sheriff, right? So stuff like that. That's why we want to make sure everything that's in there is included. But like Josh said, there might be something we can do to help the motorcyclists out too.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of wraps up the ones that we've profiled as part of the second edition of the plan. There is a summary right after that too to kind of boil all that down to something a little more palatable. If you guys have any questions on any specific intersections that you might, areas from where you represent or anything like that, or if you know of anybody that's got any questions and concerns on intersection safety, feel free to point them our way. We can dig into the system and we can look at crash reports, even if it's not highlighted in the plan. We do take those calls and as they come in. So, does anybody have any questions on the plan? It's a really great tool. It's a lot of time and effort that goes into it, but it's really great to see the action and with your support and funding to make these safety improvements and to see those numbers of crashes decline. And it does make a difference in the real world out there, so that's rewarding.
How did you select these here? Is it just by number of crashes, or an area, or
through the
how did you select these here?
started with the county controlled ones that we actually can have authority over, but then breaking it down, we take that crash data from that portal. And then we break it down by the number of crashes, crash rate, and severity. And we look at it in those 3 different lenses because it's hard to say one's more important than the other. They all have their own importance. Correct. And that's why we produce 3 different lists and we look at it 3 different ways. And we also pay attention, just because it's not highlighted in a profile in this plan, if we start to notice and see things in headlines and, you can see other ones happening. We're not waiting 5 years to make adjustments on other intersections just because it's not shown in here. Something could pop up and land uses change, businesses, industrial complexes go up. It's going to change traffic. The average daily traffics are increasing. They're going to continue to do so as we're trying to stay ahead of the game.
I think that's a fantastic point Josh made, that even though we didn't mention like P in Western and P in Sherman, we did make improvements to those intersections now because we could see trends going in a not direction we liked. And so anytime we do a road paving project or reconstruction, we're looking at this data and pulling up new data and fresh data all the time to see, right, what can we do, what improvements can we make at these intersections. So we're constantly looking at this information.
How did the improvements been made, or how did they get that?
What can we do?
So if it's going to involve reconstruction, you know, it may or may not already be in our capital improvement plan for the next 6 years. But if there's an intersection on a roadway that, you know, is a little later in our CIP window, it might get pushed up and see if we can get that and juggle things around a little bit and try to address it as soon as possible. Do you have something, Bob?
I'll ask you again, I asked Scott, heading southbound on Highway M at 60, and Granville has the roundabout, Highway G has the roundabout, how come they didn't put a roundabout on M? Because when you're heading south, you come up to the intersection, there's that wall there, and all of a sudden it's hard to see traffic coming, there's like a small hill, and they're moving.
Yeah, the DOT does a good job of analyzing their own intersections. So my estimation would be they looked at it and did what we did, right, and looked at that and said, okay, these are how many crashes you had, what improvements could be made to that. I know you're very familiar with the intersection. There's also homes that are very close to it. So putting in a roundabout there would probably eliminate several of the homes that are in that location. So we're probably looking at that too of, all right, if we do this, then we cause this to happen. Several of the houses would have to go away to make a roundabout happen at that particular location. So they're probably looking at that too. But they look at all this information, and we certainly can bring that up to the DOT again. We are bringing the intersections up to the DOT all the time. We just brought up the intersection of H and 144 to them because we looked at that with some fatalities that were there recently, and the DOT looked at the data again and said, yep, time for a roundabout there. And so if there's an intersection that you have that is of interest, we certainly are more than welcome. We do this quite a bit as refer to the DOT, and they do a fine job of getting back to us. They don't just say, meh, it's okay. They actually do a good job of reviewing it, and we appreciate their level of effort when that happens in our requests. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
If it becomes an issue, and I know I almost hate to bring this up, but can you lower the speed limit just at that station, saying dangerous intersection ahead? Or I know people don't always slow down though, right?
Yeah, they typically put the advisory speeds. That's the little yellow placard below that cross
Right.
the intersection head. The challenge you have is if people actually follow that or not,
Right.
and enforcement of that area, because speed limits have to be a certain length to be effective, and by state statute, a certain length. And so if you're just dropping it down, raising it up, dropping it down, raising it up, and if people assume that people are going 45 when they're actually going 65, that creates problems too.
Ah, good point.
Just want to add one other thing. I was on Center Road yesterday. Your guys were doing the mastic there for Tom Jackson. I think you did an excellent job. They did. I really was impressed.
Okay.
A Canadian were on Highway 60 yesterday, you were, and those flaggers are very polite. You can tell them that.
Well, yes. And what we'd be looking for, if you're okay with this, and I know it's a lot of data, but we'd certainly love your approval of the plan and recommend it to the county board, and then it'll be up to Chairman Schleif to see if he wants us just to include it in your packet or do a little presentation again for the county board. If we do one for the county board, it won't be as in-depth as this. We'd go through the categories and stuff and what we're doing, but it would be much shorter.
I think it would be good to share it with the whole board.
There's a lot of board members that represent a lot of different areas of the county, for sure.
And I didn't stop to hold up traffic. I was the last one right to stop before the fire. The young lady came to my window. I just waved at her and she came to my window. I says, you guys keep doing what you're doing and keep those other guys under control. She says, no problem.
Sure, we can make a motion to do that. Just a thumbs up. right? All thumbs up, any thumbs down? Motion to adopt it.
A motion second.
Oh, do we have to do the whole motion and second thing?
Be nice
I thought
to
it was
have it
just an
on record.
overview. Oh, okay. Okay. Supervisor McCulick, second by Supervisor Hartwig. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, thank
We're
you.
good to
Then
go.
we'll be back again here in the near future doing this same approach for the roadways outside of the intersection areas. Same approach, same 3 ways that we cut it down, and we'll be bringing that to you guys in the near future as well.
We'll look forward to seeing
you.
that. Thank you. Okay, the last item on our agenda is the 2024 resolution, County Highway G, sale of excess right-of-way. I need a motion and a second. Motion by Supervisor Vispalik. Who seconded it? I didn't see who. Okay, second by Supervisor McCulick. You want to touch base on this?
Certainly give a brief synopsis of this. This is on County Highway G, both in the town of Jackson and village of Germantown. We had an extraordinarily wide right-of-way of 400 feet in this area. So back in the early 70s, they bought all this right-of-way. If you looked at it, it's basically lowland, swampland on either side of there, and a nice, called navigable waterway that's along there. The DOT approached me and is looking at doing a wetland bank on the property just beyond our right-of-way, and they'd like to purchase about almost 12 acres of land from us. You can imagine that's a lot of right of way, and we don't need it. It's not usable by us. We looked at how far back we want to get. We kept a good 100-foot wide stretch, so 50 feet on either side. We're real comfortable with that going into the future. It is a nice $60,000 payment to Washington County. Several of you might remember a 980 sighting several years ago that we did where we were going to fill in a wetland. This location doesn't have a whole lot of neighbors, as we mentioned kind of earlier with another subject. So this could be one of those areas that could have been used for that purpose. And we would certainly like to, again, we'd like to get the stuff back in a tax roll, but that's not the opportunity here. But we are getting a good little check from the DOT on this process. So we're looking for your approval of this so we can sell land to DOT and they can create that wetland bank and not have to worry about the other issue, hopefully.
Does this money stay in the Department of Public Works?
Yes, it does.
That's an added bonus. Does anybody have any questions regarding this? No, then we'll take a vote. All approved, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? See no opposed. It passes. All right. The next meeting is Thursday, August 15th at 3 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.
Good afternoon. I'm calling this meeting of Land Use and Planning Committee to order. Proper notification has been sent by the clerk's office for notice of this meeting. Please join me in rising for a moment of silent prayer and our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we'll start off with our previous minutes. Any questions or comments or corrections that need to be done? No need for a motion. We will go ahead and set them. But you can we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have 3 SIP payments. We'll just group them together. I'll call for a motion for the 3. Motion by Supervisor Krebs, seconded by Supervisor Mary. Any discussion on these? Hearing none, I will accept them as we'll go ahead and vote on that. All signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And we will have the UW Extension Quarterly Report. I imagine it will be you, Ms. Ludwig, or who's coming up?
I believe our 4-H educator will be doing this update.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon. Ron Jacob Eisen, 4-H educator. And so my quarterly report, really 4-H is closing out its year in June. And so I want to do some highlights real quickly for a few minutes. Number one, we ended the year with 607 youth enrolled. That's up 6.9% from last year. We had 219 volunteers. That's down a handful. But we maintained 16 county clubs with 20 countywide projects that met monthly, either at the PAC or out at the fairgrounds. Our retention rate from last year with our membership was 81%. Just kind of give it, yes. Just to give it a perspective.
Repeat the number of 4-H members.
We had 601 youth, 219 volunteers. Thank you. The retention rate from last year was 81%. Just to put that in perspective, the state average is 80%, and the surrounding counties, there's one with 75%, and there's one with 84%. And we don't want to put too much into that numbers. We have to dig deeper as to what retention rate really means, because a lot of things could go into it. Who's graduating out? Maybe little kids, weren't that interested, little first, second graders. But the top projects in Washington County were archery with 198. Again, that's out of 607 youth. Art, 117. Photography, 84. Air rifle and poultry were tied at 79. I don't think there was a relationship between the two. Hopefully not. But as a note, on a serious note, our 4-H student, Holly Elsinger, was actually picked to be part of the Wisconsin State shooting team and went to nationals, and she actually placed 4th in air pistol in the nation. So congratulations to her. We're really proud of her. The biggest probably event highlight for this last quarter is 4-H Summer Camp, a great tradition, June 13th through the 16th. We had a total of 104 in attendance. That was up 29% from last year. So we had 20 teen volunteers who serve as cabin leaders and resource leaders in learning opportunities with water ecology, canoeing, archery, crafts, team challenge course, swimming and waterfront activities, and camp in general is for 3rd through 8th grade. So our high school leaders, our leaders are high school and then adults. So this is a year-long process. Camp starts in the fall with youth who apply and they interview and get chosen. There's about 8 hours of training that they go through on facilitation skills, emergency preparedness, how to talk to little 3rd graders about what happens when they don't get a second cookie at dinner, all the way up to homesickness. And so it was a great camp. And moving on, we do have a summer intern who has been really busy already, even though summer feels like it's only partway over. We're involved with Camp Superhero, which is part of the Volunteer Center of Washington County. We actually do the training for the teen leaders using our 4-H leadership curriculum and lessons. Myself and Kelly, the other positive youth development educator, had completed those trainings with those teen staff. And then our intern and Kelly also did a taste of 4-H at week 1 of Camp Superhero to introduce them to 4-H and then do some 4-H activities. Next week, there'll be another separate week, and I'll go over with Kelly and do that. Germantown has a Safety Town program that we do all the time, every year, and they do a little farm safety presentation, forget this, with 4 to 6 year olds. And we have 4-H volunteers go over and do a little presentation on farm safety with them. Wisconsin Dairy Promotion Committee provides ice cream. Our intern also had done 3 out of 5 presentations. She has 2 more to do at Slinger Library with some STEM lessons on that are lesson-based, but they're making ice cream, something called oblique, and then paper rockets. Oblique is that stuff that if you press it, it turns a liquid, and if you let it go, it turns solid. If you have grandkids, you know what it is. Casa Guadalupe, we have 1 out of 2 presentations that are STEM related. This one we did was marshmallow catapults, talking about trajectory, angles, speed. Jackson Boys and Girls Club, 2 of 2 presentations. Ice cream, and then the second one was poultry, introducing them to chickens and to ducks. You will see 4-H down at the farmers market with clubs doing stands, and then you'll also see our intern promoting 4-H. So you'll see our little flags flapping and our people there. 4-H involvement in fair is coming up. Fair is fair, and 4-H is 4-H, but 4-H is super thrilled to be part of fair. Of the 6,211 exhibits that happen at fair, 4,020 are 4-H exhibits, or 4-H kids who've exhibited. Remember, we only have 607 kids, but there's 4,000 exhibits. So you can do the math if you want to do the average on that. 4-H youth and volunteers volunteer hundreds of hours at the fair, including planting flowers months before fair, laying mulch, tossing hay in stalls. Fair Park, they do building sitting, barn sitting, youth judge assistance, as well as the food stand, and assisting with setup and takedown in the Ziegler building before and after the fair. So in August and September, much like school, enrollment begins September 1 for 4-H. That means clubs turn in an annual financial report for the previous year. They turn that into me, and that's something that I review with them. But youth enroll September 1st. Volunteers enroll. Youth pick their projects of interest that they would like to be a part of. And then there will be an all-club leaders meeting on August 21st. All the leaders will come together, talk about their past year, what they need for the next year. We have open house September 17th, which is an open membership drive that happens out at Fair Park, and we promote that with the schools and the libraries. And then youth officer training is October 16th, where all clubs, those 16 clubs, have a full line of club officers, and all those youth learn the Roberts Rules, and they learn about their own individual officer role. So I did that all in one breath, so I think I met my goal here. If there's any questions or comments or concerns, we'll also be part of your 25th anniversary celebration, right, with bringing some 4-H youth out to Fair Park for leading the pledge, and we have a student who will sing at the end of that 25th celebration as well.
Outstanding.
Ron has been working with us and coordinating, getting 4-H members to come and lead the Pledge of Allegiance as well as the 4-H pledge. And then what grade she's in, she's going to lead the group in singing God Bless America at the end.
Yeah, I think Isabella is, I think she's either a junior or senior, but she...
Younger sister, Lee.
or younger, one of them is doing the pledge, one of them is singing. So there you go. But one of them sang at the State Fair last year. So there you go.
Question for you, Ron. In terms of the overall general population of youths in Washington County, we keep seeing reports about schools talking about enrollment declines, population declines, and so on. Have 4-H numbers stayed pretty much on an even percentage of the overall youthful population, or has the 4-H involvement been higher or lower? I mean, is 4-H involvement sliding with the general population, or is it maintaining itself?
Well, it increased last year, I think, by 5%, and then this year it's at 6.9%, looking at the enrollment numbers, right? So that's where that kind of lays out. We could dig deeper into the numbers, and we could do that some other time, but real quickly, I know that 12.7% the members have identified living on a farm, others have not. So we can kind of look at some of those pockets, but there's clubs through the county. We know that there's been some clubs in the last 5 to 7 years that there's been a couple that have shut down. There's a couple that have actually combined. But the numbers are slowly creeping up. Camp numbers are increasing. So we'll add another project this year. We have an adult who wants to do a minerals project. So it seems like it's steady for sure with a little bit of increase here and there.
You mentioned barn sitting. Brings back memories when I was a kid in 4-H. One of my responsibilities one year was to be a barn sitter for the poultry and the rabbit barn, which was real good until about 8 o'clock Friday night when some local kids came in and started opening up the cages.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So we got everybody back in order.
I think those days are over, hopefully.
One rooster went over the fence in another schoolyard.
Well, very good. If there's any other questions,
Well, I definitely would like to give a shout out to my Wayne Crusaders. I have peeps.
Yeah, very good.
And I'm really looking forward to the fair this year. I always take the week off to go to the fair, and now I have special reason to. So I'm very much looking forward to it. And I absolutely am looking forward to seeing all the exhibits, especially the hogs. That's where my people are. So we're looking forward to that. Any other questions of the board further?
very good. Well, I'll see you at the fair.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Okay, next up is the Land Resources Quarterly Report. Jamie, who's presenting?
I am. I will answer any questions you have on this report. I will add that you see the initiative about kind of the transition, and because of the timing of putting these initiatives together and the timing of the county board strategic priorities, we are shaking this up a little bit. We're talking about some additional water health, land and rural community grant programs, things that don't show up here. So this fall, probably September, October, we'll be talking more comprehensively about the focus of the Natural Resources Department and some of those initiatives of the county board coming from that water health initiative topic. So I'll answer any questions you have here today.
All right, are there any questions on this topic? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. One moment. Okay. We'll start with the Silver Lining Amphitheater discussion. Couple of guests here tonight that I'd like to recognize. First, Mr. Joseph Balistrieri, Eagles Entertainment is here, and thank you, sir. I'm a big fan of your work. And also Supervisor McCulick, who met with Mr. Balistrieri, I believe last year as part of the land use and planning. I'm very pleased to have him here to give some of his knowledge and his thoughts. But I will start with Ms. Ludwig. Do you want to start off?
Sure, I can very briefly. There was a report in your packet kind of summarizing the background. And so what we wanted to do was provide this committee, which is new, with the background of these conversations that have been happening for a while. As you can see, the stage was actually built 2015, so we're going on almost 10 years ago, based on the material in your packet. The intention of that at the time, and then the subsequent steps that have led us to kind of the current stage. And we're kind of wanted to provide the background, give the committee an opportunity to share any thoughts that they had with us, knowing that the county executive and a small contingency, including Supervisor McCulick, that Supervisor Kelling has asked to maintain some consistency across the committees, to attend to that, to talk to Mr. Balistrieri a little bit more just about, moving forward, what's in the best interest of this stage to really try to get utilization of it or how we might do that. So that is scheduled for next week. And with that, I'd be happy to hear any comments that anybody has about the topic, kind of going, knowing that meeting is ahead of us.
So I guess I would start with Supervisor McCulick, if you want to step forward, please. First, let me thank you again for showing up and sharing your knowledge with us. I know you're done with your meeting and you're ready to probably go home. But again, reiterating what James said earlier, we're all relatively new on this committee, though not new to the board. And this is such an important item to this committee, to our community, that I wanted to make sure that we had somebody who had some strong leadership, who has been involved, and certainly just tells it like it is. So I'm very pleased to have you here today. If you can just give us a little bit of background or what you like for us to know.
Well, thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. And Joe Balistreri is here. I had an opportunity to meet Joe last year, and of course, very impressed with him. Joe is a legend in this industry. The Raven Eagles Club is an iconic place, and he has a terrific reputation as a promoter. And so, the issues with regard to the Silver Lining Amphitheater and promotions there, what I learned was, there's a couple of different facets from this. So first of all, we have a facility which is it's a nice stage. It's not really an amphitheater or a facility. It's a stage in the middle of a field, and in order to make it into something that's intimate, maybe something along the lines of what you see at Summerfest with the BMO Harris or something like that, it would take some money and it would take some infrastructure. There's obviously no dressing rooms there. There's no bathrooms there. There's no real definition to the area. And so, that's a challenge. And so you're trying to try to figure out what shape peg fits into the facility that we have. And so right now what we have are sort of the bones of a nice facility, but we don't really have a complete facility. And the cost to do that, to put in seating or to put in coverage, and Joe can get into these things. I'm not going to elaborate too much. There'd be a substantial cost of that, and I don't know that we really want to subject the Washington County taxpayers to that, because the other side of this thing is when you look at something, I like to call it load factor, right? And the load factor is what's the utilization rate? What's the utilization rate of something like this? We have our county fair. You might have some other events, but let's face it, even though it's a forward-facing asset that the county has, a good utilization rate for this thing might be 3% or 4%. Think about that, right? How many days in a year and how many days is it actually used? So how much money do you want to put into it? So there's a lot of things you're trying to balance out. And, so we have our facility question. How do you make it into something? Because, again, right now you have a stage, but we really don't have a venue, and so there's that part of it that we're trying to put together. And Mr. Balistreri is in a very competitive business. He has competitors out there that are also seeking acts. Live Nation being the big one. They're being sued right now, and they're able to offer acts a number of dates and money up front and things like that. It's a very competitive business. So, maybe people wish that there was more that happened. I wish that there's more things that were going on at the Silver Lining Amphitheater. It's a very forward-facing asset. You see it right from the freeway, right? But the fact of the matter is that's a lot tougher road to hoe than we all know. And it's not easy to try to get the right type of act in there. You put 100 or 200 people there and the place just looks empty, right? But it's hard to get more people in there outside of the fair. You'd have to have the right draws. And so Joe can speak to that part of it. And so, sometimes you run into a circumstance where, what we have is this is just a very tough industry. And it's very challenging for him. And then we have a facility that's not exactly, it's a nice facility. It's just not really something. I mean, there's all kinds of visions you could have for it, that I've thought of that could be lower cost ways to maybe make it more defined and intimate and into something. But that's a challenge too. So you have to have a vision for that. And then the other competitors that are in that are in this field. So places like, Frank Productions, some of these other production companies, they've proposed places, and we've all heard these things, right? They were going to put one in downtown Milwaukee, in the Potawatomis, and you'll notice there's always these plans But, like developers, when the rubber hits the road, the money isn't there and they never happen. None of these things have happened, and it's happened, and that's for a reason. It's because they're looking at the number of events they can put into it and the revenue you can generate out of it, and no bank is going to give them any money because they can't make it work, right? So, so that part of it's challenged. So that's why, you've never seen anything with any of these other new venues coming up. So, I give the county a lot of credit. One of the nice things is when I've been on the Washington County Board for 3 years, and you really see, and I know we have our pillars, right? That we refer to when we're making decisions. In business, I was part, of an entity where we use Six Sigma, and Six Sigma is great because you're always looking at what you're doing, and you're saying, why am I doing what I'm doing, or what am I doing with this? And you're constantly looking, and that's a great thing. And on my time on the board, we've done a lot of things, right? We've made a lot of changes, and we've made some hard decisions, Samaritan and things like that. The amphitheater is a really different animal. It's really different because you'd like to do something with it, and you look at it and think there's more that can be done. But boy, that's really hard. And Joe's business is very difficult too. We have a lot of, I think it has a lot of upside because it has good freeway access. We have a safe area. There's some good bones. There's some nice, infrastructure there, but it's not appealing to a lot of people that are in, the entertainment industry. And again, I'm going to let Joe speak to that. And all I can say is, this is one of those, those things where a lot of smart people. I think Jamie's very sharp. Josh. You look at everybody here, and Joe. And Joe's been in this industry for a long time. And you look at it, and you're still kind of shrugging your shoulders, just like those other entities that are proposing these other facilities, and you just, you can't quite make it go because of the environment and the numbers. So it's not a clear cut. There are, in my opinion, there's no clear cut answers to this thing right now. And there's been a lot of turmoil in this industry. But I can tell you that when I met, Joe, he's clearly a very sharp guy. He's a great businessman. He has a terrific reputation. It's, the things that haven't happened aren't because he's not a good partner and he's not trying. It's because he's in a really difficult industry with a big player that's really squeezing people out. Even him at his own venue, the Raven Eagles Club, which is, like I said, and if you're all familiar, just, 3 different venues there, and it's an iconic place. And he's, he even has his challenges there. So, for whatever any of that is worth that I just said, that's sort of my overview of this. And, that's what I learned last year, and maybe you're going to learn as we move forward. So I guess that's all I can tell you at this point. That's my, point. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to share.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Supervisor McCulloch. I appreciate what you're doing. It is really a huge help. I think that consistency, just by your speech, is well warranted.
Yeah.
So I'll look forward to meeting with you and working on that as we keep moving forward.
Yeah, whatever value I can be in this, I'm happy to do that. So yeah, absolutely, Supervisor Kelling. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ballestri, would you like to come up? First of all, I'd like to say, Mr. Ballestri, I actually worked in security for your club back in the early 80s. When was that? Early 90s, excuse me. I'm dating myself. Great place, great people, and such iconic acts and stuff that you've had through there. I just really admire your work.
Thank you.
So I guess this is kind of a free forum for you to kind of just educate us. We're all new on this committee now, so we're kind of stepping into this, with not a lot of knowledge other than Mr. Supervisor Mary. He's, been around, but the rest of us are newer to this. So we'd really like to hear your thoughts and just anything you want to let us know. Thank you.
Sure. As I understand, we're really going to talk about the marketplace first. Is that correct, Jamie? And then maybe more specifics off camera in the office on Monday. But the overall, Milwaukee is Milwaukee. I've been doing entertainment here since '68, so a long time. And opened my first entertainment club in Milwaukee in '70. Done about 20,000 shows, and I would say it's the most difficult and most expensive now than it's ever been. And the reason is obviously Live Nation, which is why the federal government is suing them to be broken up, because they have the ability in the entertainment business in general, by tying up acts for 30 or 40 dates a year, they're able to pay these acts over what they're worth for certain marketplaces by amortizing all the money from the tours over 40 shows, as opposed to just looking at Milwaukee. And then they're able to scalp tickets because of Ticketmaster, and they have lots of sponsorship money. And so their model on a big national basis is not much different than Summerfest, which has obviously been here since whatever it is, 72, don't remember. Actually, I played at the first two Summerfest in a band. The Summerfest model is you lose money as a promoter, you have cheap tickets, but you have 10, 15, sometimes even $18 million worth of sponsorship money. And then you basically spend all your sponsorship money down to end up with $2 or $3 million at the end of the year in actual cash flow for the next year. Now, the marketplace today, coming out of COVID, obviously COVID stopped everything, and it just changed the whole industry. So when we made this agreement before COVID, it was one world, or during COVID, right? It discussed before and happened during. Now we're after COVID, and it's a whole different world. 22 people got about a half a year's worth of business in, because business didn't really start till about July 1st of 22. 23 was a banner year for most everybody in the business. Live Nation on down. Our company had the best year we ever had. And in 23, it was just a spectacular year. Pent-up demand, all the things you read about in the business channel. Government money still in the system, so people had extra money. And now we're in 24, and 24 is being extremely difficult for everybody. And the future looks pretty tricky. You've got the federal government trying to break up Live Nation and Ticketmaster, which they're bound and determined to do from people that we're talking with. And I think that it would be very good for the overall business for the future, your project here, anything that would go on, because it would level the playing field. In other words, businesses like ours are totally capable of competing against another business like ours. But you can't compete against the government. And Ticketmaster operates somewhat like the government. Well, they'll lose what, the money's not real to them. They just throw the money out to get the act in order to make all the money off the ancillary revenues. So it's just not a one-on-one type of fair fight, which is why the government is going after them. And I think there's high-profile, pretty persistent attack on them. And this is also the state of Wisconsin signed on to the lawsuit. So this is also antitrust state of Wisconsin cases also going on. So you have those two things happening. The Frank Productions, which is our direct competitor, is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of Live Nation. So there is no Frank Productions per se. It's actually Live Nation. And so every place that we turn, we're competing against Live Nation. So if you look at the let's look at Wisconsin marketplace. And this is the Live Nation takeover coming down to your situation here in Washington County. So Live Nation started off buying Alpine Valley back in whatever it was, 80, 90, 2000, well, it might have been 95 or 96. A precursor division to Live Nation got the lease at Alpine. I built Alpine. So I ran it for 14 years. It was the number one thing in the country during those 14 years. But like everything, that business kind of stopped. But at the same time, our annuity, the Grateful Dead, went off touring. And so, you look at the next year and you say, I lost my annuity, now what do I do? And the big acts were in touring, and it just was time to switch, and that's when I switched to the rave, 91, because that's when the House of Blues started, and the club business was just becoming the thing at that point, and it really didn't exist before that. And so they bought Alpine Valley, and first they leased it in whatever, I'll pick a date, 95. It could have been there sooner or later. 95, and then eventually they purchased the property, $8.6 million. And it happened to be that we only invested $9 million in Alpine, because again, this was old dollars in the whole construction budget. So basically, they paid market value for the property back at that time period, and then shelved the project. Next thing they did is they went to Madison and bought out the whole Frank's operation in Madison. And they went and I'll go fast through this because it's pretty complicated, but they went and took over all the promoters in Madison, the Alliant Energy Center, and Breeze Field, which is the baseball stadium in Madison. So they basically, Live Nation now has 95% of the business in Madison. Then they came to Milwaukee, and Ticketmaster was already the ticketing company at Summerfest. And they came into Milwaukee after COVID and made an exclusive ticketing deal with Summerfest, where a promoting deal along with the ticketing deal. So no local promoter like us, a third-party promoter like AEG or Gary Witt at the Pabst Theater Group can go and rent the stages at Summerfest. It is wholly controlled 100% by Live Nation. And probably illegally, again, which is why the government went after them, is going after them. So the last step in controlling the entertainment business continually in the state of Wisconsin completely is to open up a 4,000 to 5,000 person place along with the Bucks, where again, Ticketmaster is the Bucks ticketing company. So they already have control of the ticketing company. They already have control of the acts that go into the Fiserv, because they have the national contract with those bands for 40 or 50 dates around the country. And so they, in essence, control the Fiserv, although they don't have a contract to control it. Now, once they do the 4,500 person place, the goal is basically bankrupt us and everybody in the smaller concert business in the state. Now, the government's after them. The state of Wisconsin's after them. We're going to do everything we can to fight it. But that's the overall business, and that is the Live Nation Frank's venue that Ken alluded to, that they're talking about at the Fiserv. The original construction cost is $60 million. By the time they're done with what they're doing, it's probably going to end up $75 million. I mean, right now, doing anything, I'm doing a little air conditioning project at the Eagles Club, and I'm so sorry I ever did it, because it's 100% retrofit, and it's like I'm blowing my brains out is the easiest way to put it. And I'm literally over budget by 45, 50%, only because you never know what you're going to get into with an old building until you get into it. So I can't imagine how the cost of what they're going to do, although new construction's easier, is going to come. They're saying $60 million. I can't imagine 70, 75 million. And again, how do you ever make that money back in Milwaukee? I don't absolutely see how they could ever do it. But they say they're going ahead with it. End of the day, do they have a bank loan? Do they have the money? Where are they? I have no idea. Potawatomi, on the other hand, has that one extra advantage that none of us have, which is gambling money. I mean, $200 a person average that goes in the Potawatomi casino lose $100 of the $200 on average they spend on gambling. Now, that's from the Milwaukee Journal statistics. $950 million of gambling, net take to the tribe, $450 million. And then the tribe's got their expenses, so that's not net money to them. So Potawatomi is in the best position to do something. And I'm going to suspect that they are bound and determined because they are like us, where they have competition all over the place. Downtown Chicago, thing in Kenosha. They're opening more places in the west side of the state. So I think in the long term, they'll be the most likely to do something. That'll be an indoor building. That will be a beautiful, because everything they do is really, they spend the money, it's beautiful. And so what that's going to mean to everybody, I have no idea. Not quite our business, because we're more in the 1 to 2,000 person kids business, which they absolutely are not interested in kids. They don't gamble. And, you got to be over 21. And then second of all, we tend to deal with, at the Eagles Club, we tend to deal with more what Milwaukee is. We're the Latin promoter, we're a hip-hop promoter, we're a rock promoter, we're adult rock promoter. And if Potawatomi builds and Live Nation is broken up by the government, I think we'll have a fine business because we can exist with Potawatomi. Hard to exist with Live Nation operating the way they're operating because it's just a complete old-school monopoly, top to bottom, control everything in every aspect of the entertainers' careers. So now you have Washington County, and a lot of it has to do with what you view county government's role is in bringing business to the county. And is it the right decision? And I'm not advocating, I'm just talking, advocating anything. Is it the right decision to spend $20 million? I'm picking a number out of the sky, but it's a realistic number. $20 million, and let's say 10 to 20, to update what's going on at the Silver Lining Amphitheater with the understanding that maybe at the end of the day there's not enough money coming in to cover the bond issue or whatever it would take to do that in order to get enough traffic and business to all the Washington County businesses, because it will definitely increase business in Washington County for the hotels, or it'll maybe increase hotel business. You might even get hotels. It would certainly boom the restaurant business, getting people into downtown West Bend. And on concert days, I would assume West Bend would just be ridiculous, like Lake Geneva is every Alpine show. I mean, every Alpine show at Lake Geneva in the 80s, the hotels were booking, you had to have a 3-day stay, no matter how long you stayed. And it ridiculous, it was like $400 a night per room back in the 80s. So I can't even guess what that would be right now because the rooms are at such a premium. And when we stopped doing that in 91, by 95, 96, every hotel in Lake Geneva went bankrupt. The Grand Geneva got sold to Marcus, and if you go back and look through the records, everybody went bankrupt because they lost all that giant summer business. So Walworth County back then made the determination that wasn't in their best interest. It was just too big, too much, too everything. And as a result, they ended up with nothing for a long time, which caused everybody to go out of business. Now it's built back up to be a different business, and which is, I haven't been down in a long time, but I assume just fine for them. And all things are good and all the things are flourishing, I believe, because Chicago's moving north, so they're getting the Chicago business. For Washington County, realistically, you're at a static marketplace, which Milwaukee's, the whole metro, is literally not growing, or if it's growing, it's 1%. And it's becoming more ethnic, basically, which for our business is great because that's the business that we're in. Whether for Washington County over time that's good or not, it's your judgment. I think there's a big Latin business that's not being serviced and is getting bigger and bigger every day. We're the largest Latin promoter in Wisconsin. It's a big part of our business. I have to have Spanish-speaking employees, and we have a Latin website, leagles.com, and we're way into the business. So that's available. But overall, you have a static marketplace with competition from the left and from the right. You have a marketplace from a facility standpoint that is missing a 10,000-person outdoor music facility. And there is a need for it. In other words, it's bigger than what they service at Summerfest, but it's smaller than the Fiserv and the American Family Amphitheater, I guess they call it now, and County Stadium. So it's smaller than the big ones. And these types of facilities flourish all around the country because there is a need for that size facility. which is perfect for the space you have there. You can park the cars. You need no extra space for parking. You have access in and off of the expressway. And if you have 10,000 people at an event, you probably have 3,000 cars, 3,200 cars, which you can service easily. And there is a need for that in the marketplace. There's also a need in the marketplace because Summerfest has totally boxed themselves in a corner. They've spent $300 million on permanent facilities. That means they can't do anything flexible. In other words, something like that country festival this week, Country Thunder, could never play Summerfest because it's, first of all, it'd be too expensive. And then second of all, from an operation standpoint. And second of all, because everything's fixed and to get the crowd to move around correctly for that, the promoter at the end of the day would not make a nickel, so he would never do it. So he goes out and got his land out there that he probably purchased. I don't know that much about it. Put up all temporary facilities, did his big festival, and he's very successful at it here and other places in the country. And Milwaukee does not have that, and Milwaukee does not have a 10,000 person outdoor Ravinia type festival, for want of a better, or like the facility in downtown Chicago, I don't know what they call it now, but the ones where Meigs Field used to be downtown Chicago, next to the Pritzker Pavilion down there and everything that they did. There is a need for that in Milwaukee. And Summerfest can't do it because they're landlocked, they're boxed in, and they have to tear things down. Their 5,000 person place is flat. So once you get to 6,000 people, 6,200 people, the last 200 people can't see a thing. You're looking at the show on the screens. They can't change what it is, and they're boxed in. So from Washington County's perspective, if I take a 10-year horizon, there is an opportunity for that. It does take an investment, and I cannot sit and tell you that you're going to get a return on your investment. You may lose money on your investment every year. I can tell you, you would have very happy businesses in West Bend and around, up and down. I mean, your Culvers would be ridiculously busy on certain days coming off the expressway. That would be positive. And it would focus the name, Washington County name, Silver Lining Amphitheater, as the case may be. You would just get millions of dollars worth of extra advertising. I mean, not different than the RNC. The RNC for Milwaukee businesses has turned out to be a giant loser. I mean, for the DNC, I had 4 big events at the Eagles Club. I have none for the RNC. And it's not just us. It's every other small local business like us. Everybody's aced out. It was just the big boys getting the money for the big boys. And maybe that was smart. Maybe it was because of security. I don't know. But it's a situation where the RNC has great publicity nationally for the city of Milwaukee. So maybe they can justify that that's a great thing for the city. But from a local business opportunity standpoint, it's been terrible. And so some people inside the zone did okay. If you're outside the zone, not only do you not get your normal business, but I go to a place for lunch every day and have for like about 10 years, order my lunch. I called up on Tuesday and they said, nobody in the restaurant and you're the only customer that's ordered lunch. And it's one of the most popular places in downtown. And so that is a case where Milwaukee decided they would spend, or the RNC, $85 million, I think is what they spent. They raised for the thing, if I recall. It's in the paper, whatever the number is. And they determined that it was worth doing that for the publicity for the city of Milwaukee. And I think that it's their, it's up to them. Is it a good idea? Was it a good decision or not a good decision? Not for me to say. I know that people like us got aced out. If you did music at Washington County and if you thought that that was the right thing, I would say your local businesses would not only not get aced out, they would thrive, and you'd probably have some more local businesses. So in the big picture, it's just a question of what is the function of government in Washington County, and you think it's worth an investment in the grounds to try and get extra business here, people to understand where it is. And it's, even though you're a suburb of Milwaukee, in my mind, I live in Mequon. I mean, to me, you're not any different than you're Mequon West, so to speak. To people from outside the city, you're not in the city. When I've tried to bring the facility to people's attention, and you're just not in the city, you're a suburb. And at one time that was a negative, maybe not so much a negative anymore, just because, again, the change of the whole social climate out there, where being in the city is not as great as it used to be as a business owner. I'll leave it at that. But it is way better than it was 20 years ago, so I'm not complaining. But I think that's where we are with the project. And I don't want to be the guy to tell you what to do. I can just give you my honest opinion on why, if people would ask me, should we do this and this, what's going to happen? I can give you my opinion, an educated opinion on what I think will happen in my specific little industry part of the picture. And so that's kind of how I see the whole thing. Opportunity is still there, might even be better than it was before. It is a terrible year for outside concerts this year. I mean, last weekend, Summerfest got whacked. That's obviously in the paper. My friend does the biggest country festival in Chicago. He lost Saturday and Sunday last week. Probably lost money on the festival for the first time in the last 10 years. The show at Alpine last Saturday got postponed and canceled. I can't remember what happened. I was in Chicago looking at with the Brothers Osborne in downtown Chicago at the Salt Shed 3 weeks ago on Saturday, and driving back was when that tornado was coming, and the show was at Summerfest that got hit. Motley Crue, I think it was, got held over and maybe played. I think Dave Matthews at Alpine, I don't know whether it played or not. I know that the Tequila and Tacos Festival at the baseball park in Franklin got canceled completely, and customers are like out of their mind because they didn't get refunds, and they're not giving refunds. And it was so that was 3 weeks ago. That was a terrible Saturday night. So I mean, this is like not been a good summer for outdoor concerts. Some people say it's because of climate change. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know, but it's definitely hotter, and it's definitely rainier, and it's definitely the rain hit on the weekends, and so it's been a very bad year for business, as Summerfest complained in the paper. But that season, that varies year by year, and so you just don't know where that is. But I do believe that our industry, a lot's going to be determined by what the federal government does with Live Nation. If they break them up, it is going to be an even playing field for everybody, which will make an opportunity for proposing for Washington County, what's been talked about, greater opportunity to prosper, because these acts can't be tied down, locked in at unfair prices, so it becomes open competition. And on open competition, then it's just having a pretty, kind of like we've done at the Rave. At the Rave, I just keep trying to make it unique, interesting, customer-friendly, give the customer what they want, the right price, have a place that they want to go to so that it's an experience, it's not just a concert. And so I think that that's the Rave's edge, which is why we still have been doing well and actually keep doing better and better, although for 24, it's been okay up till now, but I don't see the last half of 24 being so good. But I think if Washington County can create a more like Ravinia, unique experience that is pretty, take those two ponds and make those two ponds real ponds instead of retention ponds, and some pretty walkways around it, and just maybe make that the feature of the place. I mean, there's all, when you dream, there's all kinds of things you can dream when you don't have to spend the money. And then it comes back down to reality, which is what Ken said.
Thank you, Joe. I just want to make sure the committee has time to ask questions of Mr. Balistrieri,
Yes.
if he has any. And then also note that, again, what we're looking for is if any of our board member or Land Use and Planning Committee members have comments going into kind of our discussion about what to do going forward with the county's current contract and how we're going to be discussing that. So.
Thank you, Ms. Ludwig. The chair recognizes Carol Mary, Supervisor Carol Mary.
Also, reminder to please stay on the agenda topic, which is the Silver Lining Amphitheater discussion.
Right. Thank you, Joe. We had a distraction. There was a group of us went down visiting the facilities last spring now. Maybe
Right.
winter. you mentioned then that you got something like the Potawatomi that's great for indoor for them, but they may need some kind of an outdoor facility. Is there a relationship there that could perhaps happen? But you also made the comment that the current facility that we have the theater, for the layperson, it looks fabulous. But you get up onto it on the stage for a professional group to come in, it's not structured to hang the sound systems and the lighting. I believe you said that it's not load bearing enough to pick up the weight of what a bigger group would want to have in terms of light, sound, pyrotechnics, and so on. And so that in itself, to try to get into that level of entertainment, is going to require what? A rebuilding of that entire structure, or a major modification?
It's a rebuild.
The green rooms, the washrooms,
Right.
and everything else.
I think it's a rebuild. In other words, if you look at what Potawatomi did for their little outdoor summer stage, that's called the SAM 450 stage. And I looked in it's a rental stage. And that will fly 80,000 pounds worth of lights, maybe 90,000. Where at your facility right there, right now, if you do 22,000 pounds, it's going to be tough. Like at the Eagles Club, I had to fix the steel up to fly 60,000 pounds. So at the Eagles Club, I can do 60,000. That outdoor stuff, they use more outdoors than indoors, obviously. So they can fly 85, 90,000. So it's a tear down and put something brand new would be my opinion. Unless you go real small and just do 1,000-person little things and little local events, things that you probably do now at the side stage of the fair type of a thing.
What is the industry saying regarding the Live Nation Ticketmaster split up? I mean, is this something you think it's going to happen? Are the timelines being anticipated?
Well, the majority of the major players in the industry are just doing everything they can to get the split happening. It's the federal government, and it just takes time. I think the appetite in Washington, from what I've understand, is that it's just that time. It's time to split it up. Never should have happened in the first place. It was political how they got it through because of the Obama administration and Ari Emanuel and entertainment people that put it together. The brother worked for Obama. I'll leave it at that. And it's all public knowledge. You can look it up. And so they were able to get it through at a time and not go not give it the scrutiny it should have had. Now it has the scrutiny that it should have had. But I have no idea if it's going to happen or not. I want it to happen. And I think it's important to the industry to have it happen. But it's really up to the government.
Okay.
I mean, in the state of Wisconsin.
Any other questions, Brian? Okay. Are you all set?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, boy, that's it? Okay.
Okay. Well, I guess if I could just put a capper on it. First of all, thank you for coming out. We
Okay.
appreciate that.
Sorry for talking so long.
No, we're fascinated. I mean, honestly, I can listen to you, speak about the city because I have people in the industry, also down in Illinois that are, the loss of venue down there is just amazing. And, places that have been around for many years are gone.
Right.
And so I do understand at least that portion of it. And we look forward to trying to work out something for our stage. I mean, it is such a nice little stage in a nice area, and there's so much potential there. It may not be time yet, or maybe we can figure out, like you were saying, something a little smaller scale or something. I just feel like we're underutilizing a very nice gift that was given to us by West Bend Mutual Insurance. They donated that, and it was such a nice gift, and we really want to make the most of it we possibly can. So we'll look forward to working with you and sending our delegation over to you and working that out. And once again, I thank you very much for being here tonight. I appreciate your time. I know it's not easy to call.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we should.
One more comment.
Oh,
Bill.
sure.
I've been to Ravinia many times, and that's a dream to achieve.
It's what?
It's a dream to achieve.
It is a dream. No, it's very beautiful.
Thank you very much, sir.
Comments with Supervisor Ken McCulloch, the county executive, myself, or the chief of staff prior to Monday.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Response from UW Extension, Dean Carl Martin.
This is just an FYI for the committee. We had sent the letter to them. Josh did. We deliberated about that. The county executive did at the last meeting. This is the response that was received, and there is currently a scheduling request from the county executive to Dean Carl Martin to meet.
Okay, any questions on that for Ms. Ludwig? Okay, yeah, I guess it's kind of self-explanatory. You know. Okay, well then we'll move on to the resolution. Grant application funding for Glacier Hills Lakefront development. So this is an application, one of probably quite a few that we might see. So first of all, I'll take a motion and a second. Motion by Supervisor Conrad, second by Supervisor Mary. And Jamie, you want to just give us a quick...
Sure, I will. So we did take a look at this project on the tour when we were looking at sort of what this would be coming. So this is the resolution that would authorize the staff to apply for a variety of different grants utilizing the funding that was previously allocated by the board, $250,000 in the Parks Enterprise donation, as well as the endowment committee has verbally and at their last meeting made a motion to commit up to an additional $200,000 if needed to match in pursuit of what would be total project funding of roughly $1.2 million. So we have not refined that number any further because we have not authorized the next stage of sort of design work. We only went to a 30% concept plan to get budget numbers. Without having funding for the project secured, we wouldn't want to do that work. So this is sort of the next step. Some of these applications are due in the fall, and we can answer any. Logan Bliss, our Parks and Trails manager, is here as well, and we can answer any questions you have about this.
Okay, any questions for Jamie on this particular? Well, this is just the grant application, correct?
Correct. So the way that the county policy works is that because we don't have the grant in the authorized budget to accept funds, anytime those project funds are over $50,000 that we'd be receiving and then eventually spending, right? So we'd be taking in the money and then spending the project. We have to seek approval for accepting those funds. So this resolution would actually do both. It would actually authorize us to apply for grants within the Parks Enterprise, assuming that no tax levy is used for this project, and then it would also amend the budget to expend and use the funds for that purpose. So it's a 2/3 vote.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Ludwig on this? All right. Well, so this would be authorization for the use of for the department to apply for this grant, and we do expect to see a few other possible grants coming down in this project.
Well, if you read the packet and you read the proposed resolution, it actually authorizes us in this one resolution to apply for multiple different grants. So this project kind of hits a few different buckets: stormwater infrastructure, recreational boating and swimming, lake access, and park development type areas. So we would be looking to work with likely a consultant to kind of work on how to maximize the applications and try to attempt to fully fund this project.
Yeah, okay, that makes actually more sense to me because I saw that, but I wasn't sure if we were doing this on an individual basis on the grants, but basically they're all going to be tied into this resolution.
Right. So some of them are less. So there might be, say, a $25,000 grant for fishing that we would be eligible for. Some are more, some have higher match percentages than others. But this is basically saying as long as we have that match money available within that $450,000 collectively, we would be authorized to move forward with those applications.
Great. Okay, so seeing as we've exhausted our comments and questions, all signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, I'll consider the resolution passed. And that brings us to the end of business. Our next meeting date is Thursday, August 15th at 4:30 p.m. right here. Thank you very much. I did fail to mention we were short Tina Pridemore tonight. She's down volunteering at the RNC, so that's